Myra Jones is a mother, a grandmother, a wife, and she's been heavily involved in the community for over 30 years. Now she wants to take her community service experience and law experience to Mount Pleasant Town Council to tackle issues such as infrastructure, housing, and jobs. I talk one-on-one with Myra for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Myra Jones, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today. I've seen a lot of your podcasts, and I know you've done a lot of work on the issues around our area that are so important. So I really appreciate this time with you today.
Oh, you're very welcome. You know, I'm bringing you on Quintin's Close-Ups because you are the director of the Charleston Beach Foundation, a group that works to promote and advocate for, quote, expanded and enhances access, unquote, to Charleston area beaches over the past year. You're also a full-time paralegal. And now, obviously, you're a candidate for Mount Pleasant Town Council. You said this, quote, I have been asked many times, why do you want to be a council member when you're not a politician or a business owner? Quite simply, you said, quote, after spending countless hours to get a law passed earlier this year to protect citizens' rights to park on state roads, I realized there was more to do for our community. And the only way to make that happen was to run for office and win a seat at the table. Let me ask you this, Myra. What was at the table before you decided to run?
Oh, goodness. Over the years, my table has been very full with, raising a family and working full time and working for community service projects. We've all found over the last couple of years that there are things in government that need to be changed. And as John Lewis said, if you see something wrong, you need to take action and get it right. So I've been very proud of all the initiatives that have gone on in the country. And, the beach issue is a small issue on the grand scale, but, it's been so important to all of us in the Low Country and even the visitors that come here. My family's been going to the beach for 250 years. I even had an ancestor that fought at the Battle of Sullivan's Island, fighting the British who were coming from the Isle of Palms over. So the beach is very important. It's a vital part of my upbringing. As a child, I would always go to Sullivan's Island in the summertime and, fishing and crabbing and shrimping and getting the sand spurs and the blowouts and the flip-flops. That's all part of growing up to me. And I just want to make sure it continues to be a part of growing up for all the Low Country people.
Now, obviously, you were a big part of obviously the success with the beach issue earlier this year. I always thought this, Myra, because I wanted to ask this question to you many, many times, but were you acting as a paralegal for that case or simply an activist?
So I use my paralegal skills, and that includes research, the ability to communicate. You're a great research person, I know that. But, I use my skills. How do you communicate? How do you write a letter? How do you write an email? How do you make a phone call? In law, if you're disrespectful to the other side, you're never going to get anywhere. So that's why I always stayed on the straight and narrow, just to the facts. I never got involved in the heated discussions. That was not the place to go. So when I tried to take my grandchild to the beach a couple of summers ago, and I couldn't, I called up the people who were organizing Charleston Beach Foundation or the beach access page and said, do you want to do something? If you want to do something, let's do it right. Let's form a foundation and let's go on the straight and narrow path. And that's what we did. And I'm very proud of all that we accomplished and all the support we got from Senator Grooms, Mark Smith, the whole Charleston legislative delegation, except for one. And, when we went to the Senate and I testified in front of the Senate, they passed the bill S-40, Larry Groom's bill, unanimously. The House of Representatives passed it 102 to 10. And 2 of those 10 have homes on the Isle of Palms. So I was very proud of how we were able to handle it and get it through. And Oh, I've got a sign to show you. Secretary Hall was very happy with our efforts as well. Do you have a second?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you, oh, I've got to go back.
Wow. Oh, I see now. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Wow.
So this is a sign that Secretary Hall gave to me this past week, and also to Lee Rowland
Right.
and Corey Kinsella,
Right.
the other two directors of the Charleston Beach Foundation. And she just wanted to thank us for taking extra time and effort to try to preserve rights to the beaches and to access the parking for all citizens of the state.
Now, so do you consider yourself a paralegal and an activist in this case?
Well, I've never been an activist before, so I'm not sure. That's a real term that I like. I've always been active in community service and active in my children's lives and schools. I think that the timing was right and the situation was right that I could become active and an advocate for beach access. And I did use my paralegal skills, and we were able to bring things together that way.
Were you paid by any of the attorneys working on that particular case?
No. So I work for a corporation in town, and which is probably a benefit. If I were working for a private law firm, I'm not sure I would have been given the opportunity to do as much as I was able to do. But I work for a corporation, and no one paid me anything to do any of the work that I did.
Speaking about situations, you said this quote, "I am not a business owner and have no alliances that would sway my votes, while I have 46 years of experience as a legal professional and understand the complexities in working of the legal system. I have mastered the art of teamwork, organization, and dealing with difficult situations." What are those difficult situations right now in the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, town council has been a bit of an issue with personalities, and they've been less than respectful in some regards, in some situations to each other. And it's kind of like when you're raising a family, mom and dad always need to make a good presentation to the kids. Now in the back room, they might have a discussion and they may never agree on things. But you always need to put your best foot forward in front of the public. And you can vote separately, you can vote differently, but you need to work for the common good in a respectful way.
Yes, ma'am. And what are those shared conversations that would bring that common good together for Mount Pleasant?
Can you elaborate a little bit, please?
Yes, ma'am. What are those shared conversations that you're hearing that people want for the common good?
Oh, well, growth is a big issue in Mount Pleasant, as you know. We have a moratorium right now on building, and moratoriums just tend to raise the price of housing, which leads to my next big concern, affordable homes. Many of our police force and fire department can't afford to buy a home in Mount Pleasant, so they live in Monk's Corner or Somerville and have to travel. The extra travel puts extra strain on our infrastructure. Our young professionals, even our children, once they graduate from college, they can't afford to live here. The average price of a home, they say, is around $480,000. I believe that's a bit low. We need to build some multi-use hubs in Mount Pleasant, which would include, the work, live, play areas. Think about Seaside Farms. It's got the Target, it's got the restaurants and all of those nice things there, grocery store,
Right.
And it's got housing around there.
Right.
And, the housing is, 900 square foot to like 1,400 square foot. Those homes can sell for a little less. Young people, young families and young people who are single don't need a 3,000 square foot home. So we need to incorporate some smaller footprint homes into developments in Mount Pleasant. And we've got some older areas that are ripe for redevelopment. And there are some pockets that could be annexed into the city, and we could develop this. There's existing infrastructure, so it wouldn't be expensive to the city to put these in. It would also, alleviate some of the traffic. And, there's so many more people working from home that traffic would be less of an issue if they're working from home. So I've got some ideas on things that we can do to make the city better without having a moratorium on building. We do need to control growth, but we need to be smart about where we grow and allow growth in some of those areas.
And obviously, I want to get to my next question, but I was just at Seaside Farms a couple of weeks ago, just looking for some pizza at the Harris Teeter, but they don't have it there. So I went next door to 6 Mile. But
Right.
Yes, ma'am. What's more important for the town of Mount Pleasant right now, Myra? Is it building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, and better utilizing the existing homes?
I think we need to better utilize what we have. And there are some areas that are underutilized right now. You might know when you come over the Ravenel Bridge, there's the old Miller Cadillac facility that's there. That's going to be, as I understand it, it's going to be a convenience store and a car wash. Now, if we had done things a little bit differently in the town of Mount Pleasant, that could have been a wonderful opportunity for townhouses, for the more affordable homes. Everybody needs a car wash now and then, but I think we need to be smart about where we place homes and maximizing infrastructure and traffic and building.
Well, can you identify any housing trends in the community, such as an increase in absentee landlords, mortgage foreclosures, decreasing home values, or even increasing housing prices?
No, in Mount Pleasant, we've got the other problem. Things are just going sky high. And, I live in Creekside subdivision in Mount Pleasant. And I've lived here in this house for over 30 years. And it's just incredible to me that the cost of some of the houses here, we've got 2 or 3 families that just recently moved here from California because you can work from home. So why would you want to work from home in California when you can work from home in Mount Pleasant, So our problem is just controlling growth and not allowing our community to end up being another Isle of Palms or Sullivan's Island, where it's a bedroom community and only the rich can live here.
Where in the town of Mount Pleasant do you identify and also develop those unique characteristics when it comes to residential, commercial, and mixed use?
Well, there are some pockets that can be redeveloped. I've studied the comprehensive plan for Mount Pleasant in depth, and there's a wonderful map. And if you look at the map, you can see there are pockets all around. And there's some areas, like the old Miller Cadillac place, that need to be sold and redeveloped. We also need to incorporate green space into any new development. Mount Pleasant Way is a wonderful opportunity for biking and walking. So any new development needs to incorporate that. Hilton Head is a wonderful area as far as incorporating greenery into their developments. And as we all know, the maritime forest is important. But trees and greenery are so important with all the environmental issues we have coming up. The rising sea levels, rising climate temperatures. Greenery helps reduce temperatures. It also absorbs the extra water. So, we've got to think ahead. We need to start thinking ahead now. We need to work with nature instead of against nature. So we've got a lot on the table to think about.
I'm going to get to that in just a second. How will you maintain and enhance the existing residential and commercial character of the town and provide for compatible, appropriate, and high-quality development and redevelopment?
We can set aside some areas for concentrated business. Right now we've got a lot of hospitals in the area. We don't really have a diversified business network. And I think that we can do that a little bit better. with the concentrated business areas, and then maybe some residential areas around that. They can work together. People don't have to. I drive to North Charleston every day for work. It'd be great if I didn't have to, but there just isn't that type of job that I do really here in Mount Pleasant. So we need to work together to be a little bit more fluid, to be a little more diversified in Mount Pleasant.
What type of jobs is the town of Mount Pleasant attracting right now?
Well, as I understand it, a lot of hospitals, a lot of medical. You have the smaller businesses where you've got the lawyers and the accountants and things of that sort. And then we've got retail. There really isn't a lot of, there's no industrial really. There isn't a lot of other opportunity we have for business in town.
Now, how many homes in the town of Mount Pleasant have been actually built at a fairly consistent rate?
Well, as I understood it, there was a moratorium that we could only build 600 residential homes in the area. Affordable homes weren't included in that moratorium. But there's been a bit of a issue of, how do we control growth and preserve our neighborhoods and preserve the cultural core and preserve our heritage while allowing for some expansion and some growth. So I understand that there's a big issue there, weighing one against the other and making it compatible. But the comprehensive plan that the town has together has opportunities and has a plan for that. So we all know plans are great, but unless you institute them, they're just a piece of paper. So I'd like to move forward on some of those plans and get some things rolling.
And I wanted to back up just a second, Myra, and I forgot to ask you this when we were talking about the jobs and how you wanted to be diverse in the town of Mount Pleasant. What is the labor force in the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, first of all, the labor force comes over our bridges, primarily because there's no housing here. But the labor force right now, we've got how many hospitals? MUSC has different facilities,
right,
and that's wonderful for us that live in Mount Pleasant. But the nurses have to live on James Island to come here. So we've got the hospitality market. We've got tourism as well. And, I've got another idea for tourism. If we could maximize on the arts that we have here in town. There is talk of a cultural arts center being built. And I would absolutely, positively promote that because I have artists in my family and I have done a little bit of acting myself. And music's very important to me, and so are the arts. But if we were to have a cultural arts center, we could bring in more tourism dollars, more hospitality dollars. Our restaurants would be even busier. So I know I'm getting a little off on a side topic there, but my heart is really into the arts, and I would really love to see that come to fruition.
Well, this question will be leading me back to that and eventually, but what strategies would you implement that will promote the economic vitality and the financial stability of the town while maintaining its residential character and preserving its natural beauty?
It can be done. I mean, if you look at Daniel Island and Hilton Head, they are able to grow. One thing we need the income, the revenue from building plans and permit fees. We also need private partners to help out, to promote different departments in the office. They could help out with the Cultural Arts Center, clearly. The arts, if we got that in, we could have some more festivals and things of that sort to bring more income in. We also need to seek out more grants, whether they be state or federal, bring more revenue into the community. I think that basically hits my new ideas for revenue.
How do you accommodate multi-use trails, wildlife areas, and low-impact drainage ideas by creating pockets of interconnected, protected open spaces that allow for interactions with nature.
Well, the plan for Mount Pleasant Way really is a great plan.
Okay.
It's going to be connecting the different areas, the different communities, and allowing for bike and pedestrian walkways. People could also use that to go to and from work, so it would cut down on traffic. So I really like the Mount Pleasant Way plan. Adding more greenery, more trees to any development that goes in is going to be vitally important in the future.
And what is the future of the culture core in the town of Mount Pleasant?
That is something that really needs to be looked at long and hard and protected. History is very important to me. We all learn from our past, whether it's good or bad, and we can't deny it. And if we deny it, we'll be doomed to repeat it. So we've got to preserve the culture, and that's what we are. They need to take plans and put things together to keep the cultural core intact and promote it.
Yes, ma'am. I run a lot in Mount Pleasant. I walk sometimes over the bridge and back downtown. How would you push for safety measures within the new and existing transportation facilities regionally?
Oh, yeah. I'm all about public transportation as well. I've spoken with the gentleman at CARTA about the beach shuttle. I was one of the promoters of that.
Right.
And I know it hasn't been terribly successful so far, but any new plan like that takes roughly about 5 years to really kick in. And it with COVID as well, people weren't anxious to ride on buses. But the bigger our area grows, and in the next 30 years, our Tri-County area is supposed to grow to almost 7 million people. It's going to grow by 63%. We need to promote mass transit. There are those that would want to come to work in Mount Pleasant from North Charleston or Somerville or even West Ashley. And by promoting mass transit, we would have less cars on the road. Also, less need for these individuals to purchase vehicles and insurance and all that goes along with it. So I'm all about promoting mass transit.
And I know this might be a redundant question, that is, Myra, but how would you include bike and pedestrian facilities and programs into the town's existing transportation network?
Well, I think about 30% of the roads in Mount Pleasant, by the way, are Mount Pleasant roads.
Right.
So we do have control over those roadways, and we can put bike lanes in. We need to expand the roadway system that we have in Mount Pleasant. We need to incorporate more crossroads. Right now we've just got Coleman and 17, and that's really about it. But there are some things under works right now to promote, like the Rifle Range Road extension. That would be wonderful. Long Point Road gets clogged up quite a bit. We need to have more crossroads. And as we're building those roads, we can incorporate more bike lanes in. And I know bike safety is a big, big issue, but we can make those lanes safe. We live in a wonderful community, and the weather is such that people can bike to work probably 10 months out of the year. So why not use that?
You talk about Long Point Road, and I love that whole area, which includes Bell Hall. How could the town minimize port-related traffic with this particular mobility plan, that is?
Well, Charleston County would have a big say-so with that as well. I've done a lot with transportation thanks to the beach issue, but I'm not an expert on transportation. So I would defer to, working with the port as well as SCDOT to coming up to some alternative plans. Luckily, since I live in Mount Pleasant and work in North Charleston, I'm going against traffic all the time. But every day when I come home, whether I come home 26 or 526, there's a backlog in the opposite direction. And, I really feel for those people. We've got to get something in place to make things a little bit better traffic flow.
And obviously, you are a huge fan of history. How do you protect the natural environment in Mount Pleasant?
Well, you've got to block off areas and say no development here. This is what it has to stay as it is. It's going to be preservation of what we have.
And I know that brings me to my next question, Myra. What are those historical sites and natural areas and scenic vistas that are worth recognizing in the town of Mount Pleasant?
Oh goodness, we've got Boone Hall. We've got to preserve that. There's also another state park that's right down 6 Mile.
Right.
I can't think of the name of it right now, but we have that. And then, we have other historic homes in the area as well. The old village along by the waterway. That's such a beautiful area. And when during COVID, I did a stay vacation, kind of sort of, and rented a little VRBO in the old village, and we rode bikes every day. We've got to preserve that for our generation and generations to come.
Okay, besides the obviously 6 Mile, 10 Mile, and other areas, what other local communities within the town of Mount Pleasant needs to be enhanced, elevated, and actually protected?
Well, we've got Phillips community.
Yes.
That's a big issue right now. And the town of Mount Pleasant has just a small part in what happens there, but we need to allow all the residents of Highway 41, including the Phillips community, to have input and to try to find the best resolution there. There's Snowden community as well. We've got lots of communities there, and community is family to me, and these are very important families that we need to care for and preserve and take care of.
I thought about this too, but how do you hope the town of Mount Pleasant will work with Mount Pleasant Waterworks right there on Rifle Range Road to identify and provide opportunities in those settlement communities to be connected to public sewer?
Right, I know that's another big issue. We've got to find a way to allow them to have the services, but we need to work with the Phillips community individuals and find what suits them, because they may not be willing to do some of the things that might be required. So it's a tit for tat. We've got to work together.
And obviously, things have changed since the beginning of time with the town of Mount Pleasant and those aforementioned communities. What is the historical population trend when it comes to the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, if you're talking about population trends, who's coming, who's going, so many of the people who've lived here forever, with rising taxes and with development pushing in on them, they can't afford to live here anymore. We're getting so many people from other areas moving in because we're such an attractive area, and we're close to the beach. We have beach access. So the nature of our community is changing, but we've got to preserve what we have in the past and still be open to development. Just make sure we grow smartly.
Okay, well, how do you help those local businesses boost their competitiveness among other businesses that actually come into the town of Mount Pleasant?
Well, that's a good question. You know how there's usually, when you have a McDonald's pop up, there's usually a Burger King that pops up next to it, or some other Arby's or whatever. We need to promote more businesses to come so that there's more competition. When you want to go out to dinner, you might say, well, where do you want to go? Well, let's just go down to Shem Creek. There are lots of restaurants there. So the more we have in concentrated areas, the more business will draw to those areas, more competition. And, businesses should be able to thrive even better. And with all the residents we have in our area and the continuing growth, we have need. People in Mount Pleasant don't tend to like to go over a bridge when they want to go to dinner. There are no real arts opportunities in Mount Pleasant. So that's another thing. I'd like to see the cultural arts center so that we can go to dinner and the theater, or go to a concert and dinner. And the hospitality market with all the hotels, more people would be able to come to Mount Pleasant and stay in Mount Pleasant. You don't need to go downtown to King Street. You can stay in Mount Pleasant and have a good time.
Revitalize my favorite place, the Alhambra Hall.
Yes. Yeah, Alhambra Hall, I can't tell you how many weddings I've been to there. And my grandson and I were out there flying a kite not too long ago. And of course, we've taken the dogs there. It's a fabulous place. And I'm so glad that the city has maintained that and offered that for events for the general public.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I was just skimming overnight, looking at the obviously the agenda for Mount Pleasant Town Council's meeting coming up on Tuesday, and I thought about this first reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 156 zoning code of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by adding new sections. And obviously, they want to establish a new Shem Creek waterfront design district and design standards. What would be ideal there?
There's been an awful lot that's gone into the Shem Creek standards. I think they've got a good roadmap for how that goes forward. Again, it's preserving the character and the nature of Shem Creek. The noise ordinance is another issue that I've been very involved in. So many of our ordinances are old and out of date, and they need to be brought up to speed. We also have some ordinances which conflict with each other, and that can lead to litigation. So we need to get those things squared away. And with I've worked in the city attorney's office, so I understand these things in depth. I've written ordinances and code sections. So I'd really like to work with that. And the noise ordinance itself, they have an amendment that's coming up regarding decibel levels and hours that they can go. But there's another ordinance that needs to be amended as well, which talks about amplified music and the number of permits you can get per year. So I brought that up to the attention of the city administrator that we've got to get that squared away, because those two ordinances will conflict with each other if both of them aren't amended.
What should be the ideal decimal level?
Oh, well, I was looking at those numbers, and during the day, I think generally 70 is probably around the right number. At night, I think 50. I'm not an expert on decibel levels, but I did read the ordinance, and that sounded fair to me. And Shem Creek, or these businesses, they are kind of concentrated areas. If you've got music between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., I think that's fair to the general public and to the residents of the community. We're not having a mass concert every night with music blaring. This is somebody playing a guitar with an amplification. And general public like to listen to music, and music soothes a savage beast, right?
Yes. And I was just at Shem Creek Friday, amazing place as always. How can you create a business preservation alliance?
That's a good question, Quintin. Well, of course, you start with a committee, and then you find people from the general public who are interested in working on that. That's a great idea. We need to probably start something like that.
How has the location, the style, and quality of retail development, that is, in the Mount Pleasant area, changed during the period of this exponential growth?
Wow. Well, I've lived here 30 years, and I moved here as a single parent with 2 kids, and my boyfriend, who became my husband, had a little townhouse. And when we were looking for a house to buy, because we needed more space together, we looked at Snee Farm and we thought, oh my God, that's out in the country. That's too far away. So there was nothing out that far. Town Center has developed, and Seaside Farms has come up. Bell Hall has come up, in my time. I like those developments. I think those are great. Bell Hall is another work, live, play community, and they've got schools there and everything. It's accessible to 526, so that's smart growth. Seaside Farms connects to 526 and 17, so that's smart as well. I think if we continue in that sort of a vein and grow smartly like that, I think there's no problem. We're preserving the older neighborhoods, the Old Village and Wakanda and all those other neighborhoods are not being disturbed. And so there's quality of life. But we need to be livable and have quality of life.
Do you believe that if and when the town moves towards slower growth, that in fact revenue streams will kind of shrink?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of my concerns. So instead of building bigger developments with bigger homes, we need to concentrate those. We need to have, if a development comes in, if it's newly annexed property, let's say 50% can be, the standard size home, and then 50% patio homes, 900 square foot homes, townhouses, duplex, things of that sort. Again, that serves the need for the affordable homes that we desperately need in Mount Pleasant.
What are those, sorry about the delay there, but what are those regional growth pressures that you're kind of concerned about as well?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
Yes, ma'am, sorry about the wind out here, but what are those regional growth pressures that you are generally concerned about?
The growth pressures that I'm concerned about? Well, pressure on traffic, pressure on the roads, additional strain on the infrastructure. And with our town owning 30% of the roads, there's a cost to upkeep those roads. Of course, we have a cost associated with upkeeping the existing infrastructure and building new infrastructure. So, with growth, there comes pains. But I think the benefit, if we did have a new development come in, we would get new property tax revenues, new building revenues, permit fees. So it would help our bottom line as far as the city is concerned. We would get additional revenue in, which we could then spend on the infrastructure in the roads.
I know this might be a little off topic, but is a smaller scale commercial development more ideal for the town of Mount Pleasant?
I believe so. I believe we need to have smaller areas, smaller concentrated business areas with more residential around. Your pockets, like I said, Bell Hall, Seaside Farms. If we have more of those, I think it's better. Less traffic. You don't have to drive, all the way to the markets at Oakland or all the way in another area. Markets at Oakland is wonderful for the people that live in the north area of Mount Pleasant. So I go to Town Center because it's a little closer for me. But we do need to space the developments around so that people can stay off the roads.
Should the town of Mount Pleasant plan to slow outward expansion of the town limits and focus on making those necessary change within the town limits?
Well, of course, we are bound by the water on two sides and by Charleston on the other. So there's only one direction we can really grow. But, as I've said, there are pockets within the city already that are ripe for redevelopment. And I would like to concentrate our efforts in those areas first before we start expanding north.
Now, this is probably another redundant question for you, Myra, but how should the town of Mount Pleasant explore multiple sources of income or revenue to minimize any risk to the town's current financial stability, that is?
We need to diversify. We need to attract different businesses, different work opportunities. we're pretty limited in the scope of job opportunities we have in our town. We've got, hospitality, and then we've got hospitals, and that's the two primary. We need to attract different businesses into the area so that we'll have more diversity.
Now, what is the current tax base for the town of Mount Pleasant?
I'm really not sure, Quintin. I could look into that, but I'm not sure of that answer.
Now, obviously, in addition to the race for town council, there's the race for mayor. Who do you support for mayor?
I support Will Haney.
Okay.
Will has been good for our town. I think he's willing to work across the aisle and to work with others. His heart is in it. As his campaign slogan says, Will is good for Mount Pleasant. I think he's a good man with a good heart, and he wants to do the right thing. I think he's got a lot of experience in leadership. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he can definitely work together. Even if you disagree with Will, he's willing to work with you to discuss. Will Haney is the person I'm going to vote for.
And if you were to be elected and he's able to be reelected, what will you do together on day one to help move Mount Pleasant forward?
Well, I'd like to get together with everyone on the council and get to know them, number one, because the better you understand someone, where they're coming from, the better you'll be able to work with them and communicate with them. I worked for a law firm downtown one time, and I worked with a couple of difficult attorneys. So they sent me to a class on how to deal with difficult people. So the number one thing I learned was try to see things from where someone else is coming from. What's in their past? What's in their experience? And then if you understand where they're coming from, it's easier to work with them. So that's the number one thing. I'd like to sit down with the other council members and say, okay, here's our comprehensive plan. What are we going to do? Let's get it kicked into gear.
Myra Jones, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin.